Hey everybody, it's Kathy. Welcome to episode 7 of Mondays on the Mat. I'm coming to you live from my office/yoga room. And today I want to say a huge thank you to Lisa for her question about what are some great poses to do after a run. I know I have a lot of runners that come to class regularly, and y'all might have some friends who are runners that could also really benefit from this short sequence that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. Always keep in mind to practice wisely and safely and at your own risk, especially after a run when you might be feeling a little bit fatigued and tired. Before we do, I'm going to tell you guys something really hysterical just so that it doesn't distract you when I get into doing the sequence here in a second. I have this awesome, lovely, giant bruise on my right upper arm. I just ran into a dresser the other day. But I know that when I get over there and start showing you, that's where the camera's going to be, and you're going to be all like, what is going on? Now you know, and it's all good. So last week, if you didn't catch that episode yet, you might want to go back and catch last week's episode about post-hike poses, because the muscles that are used in hiking and in running are very similar with just a little bit of load difference. And also then I'm going to have a little bit of a strategy difference to today's episode. So first of all, let's talk about what are the key muscles that are used when you're running, and then we'll talk about how we can relieve them. So some of the main muscles are the hamstrings, the top of the thighs. I said that totally backwards. Scratch that. The quadriceps are the top of the thighs, the front of the thighs, and the hamstrings are the back of the thighs. The gluteal muscles, calf muscles, a little bit the frontal hip flexors, which we talked about last week with the hiking, the sort of right where the hip meets your thigh area. A little bit your abdominals, and there's a muscle group we did not talk about last week, or a single muscle actually, that we didn't talk about last week with hiking, which is called the tibialis anterior, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So if any of my anatomy nerds who are all about the pronunciation want to help me out with that one, but the tibialis anterior is a muscle that runs down the front of your calf. So can you see that? So on the outside of your shin is that muscle that gets used a lot in running, and I think it gets overlooked in a lot of sequences as to how we can provide some relief to that. So we're definitely going to make sure we get that muscle today as well. Last week with the hike, I was alluding to that many of us drive our cars, and so we did a sequence what we could do right outside our car before we go and drive home. But I think that a lot of us, when we go running, we just sort of head out from home and run in the neighborhood or out into the hills that are nearby if you live near a hill. So today's sequence is going to assume that you ran from home and you're returning back to home. I do recommend, if you can, to do this sequence immediately when you get back while your body is still warm, because your muscles are more malleable, they're stretchier, and I feel like you're going to get more relief rather than if you cooled down and did this sequence later. Okay, so we're going to get started, and I know runners, you're not going to love the fact that I say we're going to start with downward facing dog, because a lot of you are tight in the hamstrings and the gluteals, but the big purpose of downward facing dog after your run is to help to lengthen those areas, and again, taking advantage of the heat will really help with that. So as you get started, and what you might want to do, this is kind of one of my tricks when I know I'm going to want to come in the door and immediately go into a yoga sequence or a workout sequence, is that I have everything all set up already. So I've got my mat already set up, and if you have yoga blocks, 2 of them for this sequence is going to be really helpful. If you don't have yoga blocks, you might stack up some books and have some books handy, and that'll make sense when I start to show you what the sequence looks like. So let's do it. Okay. Oh, yep. And here we go with the camera. I'm just going to move that down so you can see the poses a little bit more clearly. Here we go. Coming down. Awesome. So like I said, our first pose is going to be downward facing dog. to loosen up the backs of the legs. Start on all fours. Set your hands a little bit forward of your shoulders. Turn the toes under and lift into your down dog. Now I know a lot of runners are tight in the legs, so your knees are probably going to be bent, and that's fine. As you get into this downward facing dog, really slow and gentle with your breath. You're going to bicycle your knees and heels from side to side. So it's like inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And do this a few times from side to side, really slow and steady. If we go fast, we're not giving the muscles a chance to respond to the movement. And after you've done a few cycles, come up onto your toes and turn your sits bones as high to the ceiling as you can. Reach your heels to the ground. So again, I know runners are generally tighter. You're going to see some knees bent and some rounding in the low back. Do your best to lift the sits bones up. Squeeze your quadriceps to straighten your legs. Hang out here for 5, maybe 10 breaths. Then bring your knees down to your mat and have your 2 blocks on either side of the mat for a low lunge. And so about shoulder distance apart with the blocks. Place your, you're doing both sides, so you get to decide if you want to do the right or the left foot first in the low lunge. Point the back toes away. I know those are just about off camera, but the back foot is pointed. I'm going to move this block for a second so you can see. Right now I've got my knee over my ankle. That's a great alignment. You can also go knee beyond ankle in this low lunge stretch. I would encourage you to use blocks so that you can lift your chest up. That way what you're getting is, let me change legs so that you can see what I'm talking about. So you're getting a stretch up the quadricep into the frontal hip flexor, and with the blocks helping to lift your chest, like press into the blocks, lift your chest. You're also going to stretch your abdominals. So you get a lot of muscle groups in this shape in a short amount of time. And I know after a run, you've already kind of used a big chunk of your workout time. And so this is a great time saver to get a lot of muscle groups. After you've done 5 to 10 breaths, or set a timer for 30 seconds to 1 minute, we're going to come into Ardha Hanumanasana. That means half split. You're going to slide your hips back until your hip is right on top of its knee. Squiggle the front foot a little bit forward. Flex your foot and turn it to the sky. So now again, I'm going to change legs so that I can show you some specifics that I'd like you to see. So again, my friends that are runners, we're going to be tighter through the hamstrings and the gluteals. So as you get into this stretch, you might see this, like a rounding in the spine and a bent knee. So just like downward facing dog, having the blocks for support, you can lift your sits bones up and squeeze the quadricep to straighten your leg. Ground your heel into the mat and pull backwards. So you'll get a stretch up through the calf, through the hamstrings, and a little bit into your gluteal muscles. And the blocks at any height can help you move your spine forward and long. So same thing here, 5 to 10 breaths, or set a timer and do like 30 seconds to a minute. If you're using blocks, when we go to change to the other side, so again, you've done first the low lunge and then the half split. From here, change sides, and if you're using the blocks, you can just step into down dog on the blocks. If you're using books, don't do that because they'll slide. You can just change sides. And then you want to repeat on the other side. Low lunge, nice high lifted chest, 30 seconds to a minute. Half split, 30 seconds to a minute. So now we're going to get into a piece that I think a lot of sequences miss which is the front of the shin. So you'll slide yourself onto your knees. So you're sitting on your heels. And I'm going to turn myself to the camera so you can see this a little better. Sitting on your heels, lean off to one side, lift a knee, and pull up and out as you keep your chest lifted. And the top of the foot, there you go, the top of the foot is on the floor as you pull up and sit tall. And that's going to stretch this muscle here on the front of your shin. 30 seconds to a minute, 5 to 10 breaths. And then, of course, you'll do that on the other side. A few adventurous souls out there might do both knees at the same time, but you can see it's really wobbly and it's really rounding. And it's hard to sit tall. So for most people, I'm going to recommend doing that one leg at a time. Last pose in this sequence is to open the hips. It's Malasana squat pose. So you step, let me start from a forward fold. Walk your feet wider apart, turn your knees and toes out to the sides and squat down. Now, some of us, I know when we squat down, the heels are lifted. Roll up a blanket or roll up the end of your mat so that your heels can sit down on the floor. That's going to allow you to sit back and get the stretch into your gluteal muscles, which are wanting some relief after your run. So same amount of time here, 5 to 10 breaths, or 30 seconds to a minute if you're using a timer. I like using a timer because it helps keep me honest that I'm holding my postures long enough. And after that, after Malasana, after your squat, you can unroll yourself into one last forward fold, one more time, getting the calves and the hamstrings. Finish your sequence with a Shavasana. And your post-run Shavasana is going to, the length of your Shavasana is going to depend on what's going on with the rest of your day. I would say the least amount of time you would want to spend in your run, then yoga, Shavasana is 2 minutes, maybe 5. If you got some time, or this is like in between like your work day, you did your run and your yoga, and then you're sliding into like dinner time and evening activities, a 15 to 20 minute Shavasana will like totally reboot you and reset you in a way that makes you calm and quiet but focused and energized for the rest of your evening. And I'll out myself and tell you that I do almost every single day of the week right now. I do about a 15 to 20 minute Shavasana. And I've been doing that for maybe about a year now, and it like huge energy, life changer. So if you can give yourself that much time in Shavasana, absolutely do it. But definitely after those poses, 2 to 5 minutes. So quick rundown and reminder: downward facing dog, low lunge, half split, shin stretch, front of the shin stretch, Malasana squat pose, and Shavasana, a little final relaxation. So there is your post-run relief sequence. Thanks for tuning in. Check it out next week. I'm so excited. Next week's topic was inspired by the amazing staff over at Wine Country Craftsman, and we're going to be talking about please help save me from my crazy mind. Because yoga is so great for the physical body, but it's even more incredible for the mental and emotional shifts that it can help you make in your life. And it comes with very precise tools. Just like the yoga postures are very precise tools for our body, yoga comes with some very precise tools for your mind. And I'm really excited to share some of my favorite tools with you next week, because I will tell you what, my friends, if you knew me 20 years ago, you wouldn't believe that this is me today. So I'm thrilled about that. Lastly, some crazy awesome way in the world, I have 2 open spots for private lessons this week and next week. So if you're in the back of your mind like, oh, I really want to take a private lesson, catch me now. Now's your chance. Normally have a waiting list, and we got open spots. Come dive in. Twists and symmetrical back bends in group classes this week. Tuesday, 6:30. Wednesday, 5:30. Friday 9:30, and Saturday 9 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in, yogis. I can't wait to see you next week when I help you learn how to save yourself from your crazy mind. Have a beautiful rest of your Monday, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Namaste.